The year is 1314. You are standing on the north tower of a castle in the high country of the Scottish border, and it is the coldest night of the year. It is the hour past midnight. The snow stopped falling some time ago, but the cold it left behind has not. The cold has settled into the stone, into the iron of your helmet, into the wool of your cloak, into the marrow of your bones. You have been on watch for 3 hours. You will be on watch for 3 more. Your breath leaves you in slow white clouds that hang in the still air a moment before they vanish. The torches in their iron brackets burn low and blue at the edges, the way fire burns when the air itself is too cold to feed it properly. Below you, the castle sleeps. Around you, the white hills roll away into a darkness so complete that you cannot tell where the land ends and the sky begins. You are 19 years old. You have been a guard in the garrison of this castle for 2 winters. You have learned, in those 2 winters, that there is a particular kind of cold that does not hurt, that goes past hurting into something quieter and far more dangerous. And you have learned to fear that cold more than you fear any man. Tonight, that cold is here. And before dawn, one light will appear on the northern hills, and no one will ever know whether it belonged to a friend, an enemy, or a dying man. This is not a story about kings, though a king's war is the reason you are standing here. It is not about battles, though there has been one coming for months, gathering somewhere to the south, that has emptied this castle of half its men. It is about something smaller and, in its way, harder. It is about how an ordinary young man survives a winter night at the edge of a frozen kingdom. How he keeps the cold out. How he keeps the fear out. How he counts the hours until dawn. And what he thinks about while he counts them. Settle in. Pull the blankets close. Let the warmth gather around you, wherever you are, while we go together to a place where warmth was the rarest and most precious thing in the world. The fire is low. The night is long. We begin. Your name is Gyles. You were born in a village in the valley below this castle, close enough that on a clear day you can see the smoke of its hearths from the tower where you now stand, far enough that you cannot go to it. Your father was a shepherd, and his father before him, and you grew up among sheep on the cold green hills, learning the things a shepherd's son learns: how to read weather in the colour of the morning sky, how to find a lost lamb in fog, how to keep still and patient through long, empty hours of watching. You did not know it then, but these were the exact skills that would make you, years later, a passable guard. You were the 3rd of 5 children, which, in a shepherd's family, is a difficult number to be. The flock could support your father, your mother, and perhaps one son who would inherit it. The rest of you had to find your own way. Your eldest brother stayed with the sheep. Your sister married a miller 2 valleys over. And you, at 17, walked up the long road to the castle and took the Lord's coin and became a soldier. Because the Lord's garrison gave you a bed, 2 meals a day, and a wage. And these were 3 things your father's house could no longer reliably provide. Your mother did not want you to go. She did not argue, Arguing was not her way. But on the morning you left, she stood in the doorway of the cottage, with her hands wrapped in her apron against the cold, and she said one thing to you. She said, "Whatever happens up there, whatever you become, there will always be a place by our fire. Remember that. There will always be a place by our fire for you." You have remembered it. On the cold nights especially, you have remembered it. The castle you serve is not a great one. It is not a royal fortress with 1,000 men and gilded halls. It is a border castle, a square stone keep with a curtain wall, a gatehouse, a handful of towers, and a garrison that, in good times, numbers perhaps 60 men. These are not good times. The war between England and Scotland has pulled most of the fighting men south, to where the great armies are gathering for something large and terrible that everyone can feel coming, but no one can quite name. You know only pieces of it, the way an ordinary soldier knows only pieces of a king's war. You know that the Scottish king, Robert the Bruce, has spent years taking back the castles of the border one by one, and that fewer and fewer of them fly English colours each season. You know that your own king, the second Edward, is raising a host to march north and settle the matter, and that the settling is expected somewhere in the coming summer. You know that if the king loses that battle, this castle, your wall, your cold tower, may wake one morning to find itself on the wrong side of a border that has moved in the night. The older men speak of it in low voices. They have seen castles change hands. They know how it goes for a garrison that holds the losing side. What you do not know, what none of you can know on this cold night in the early months of the year 1314, is that the great reckoning is only months away, at a boggy crossing called Bannockburn, and that it will go very badly for English arms. For now there is only the waiting and the cold, and the thinned-out garrison holding a wall in the dark while, somewhere far off, the war grinds slowly toward its answer. What remains here is a skeleton garrison. Old men, young men, and the few in between who are judged more useful holding a wall than dying in a field. You are one of the young men, 19, 2 winters of service, still learning, still alive. The old men teach you, the other young men keep you company, and in between there is the work and the cold and the long, slow turning of the seasons. Let me tell you about the men you serve with, because in a winter garrison, the men around you are the difference between bearing the cold and being broken by it. The captain of the watch is a man named Aldous. He is 51 years old, which on the border makes him ancient. Most men in this trade do not see 40. He has been a soldier his entire life, in 3 different lords' service, in wars whose names and reasons he can no longer entirely remember. He has a scar that runs from his left ear to the corner of his mouth, which pulls his face into a permanent, slight frown. And he has the calmest eyes you have ever seen on a living man. Nothing surprises Aldous. Nothing hurries him. He has seen, you suspect, every way that a thing can go wrong, and he has made his peace with all of them. Aldous taught you the most important lesson of your life on your first winter watch, when you were 17 and shaking with cold and fear in roughly equal measure. He stood beside you on the wall, and he watched you shiver, and after a while he said, "You are fighting it. Stop fighting it. The cold is not your enemy. The cold does not hate you. It is just the cold, doing what cold does. Breathe slow. Move when you can. Keep your mind warm even when your hands are not. The man who panics in the cold dies in the cold. The man who stays calm walks down those stairs at dawn and eats his breakfast. Be the second man. You have tried every winter night since to be the second man. Then there is Wat. Wat is enormous, a head taller than any other man in the garrison and twice as broad. And he has the gentlest disposition you have ever encountered. He was a blacksmith's son before he was a soldier, and he still has a smith's hands, huge and scarred and capable of astonishing delicacy. He is the one who tends the braziers, who knows exactly how to bank a fire so it burns slow through the whole night, who can coax warmth out of damp wood when no one else can manage a spark. In a winter garrison, a man who understands fire is worth more than a man who understands swords. Wat understands fire better than anyone you have ever met. There is Gilbert, who is quiet and who remembers everything. Gilbert never forgets a face, a name, a debt, a kindness. He keeps the whole social ledger of the garrison in his head. Who owes whom, who quarrelled with whom, whose turn it is for the worst watch. He speaks rarely, but when he speaks, it is worth listening, because Gilbert only says things that are true. There is Edmund, who is clever and who cooks. The garrison eats what the garrison eats, but Edmund, like all clever men trapped in dull circumstances, has turned a small thing into an art. He knows which herbs still grow under the snow. He knows how to make the salt fish taste of something other than salt. He knows that a man who has eaten well can bear a cold night that would break a man who has eaten badly, and he treats his cooking as a kind of defence of the realm, which, in a way, it is. And there is Tom. Tom is the youngest of you, 16 in his first winter, the way you were 2 winters ago. He is from a village further down the valley, the son of a tenant farmer, and he came to the castle for the same reasons you did. Too many sons, not enough land, and a lord who paid in coin and bread. He is a good boy. He is quick and willing, and he does not complain, which in a 16-year-old is rarer than it should be. But he is also frightened, in the way that you were frightened in your first winter, and he hides it, in the way that you hid it. And you recognize the hiding because you have done it yourself. We will come back to Tom. For now, know only that he is on the wall tonight, 2 towers east of you, on his own watch, in his first true cold, and that part of your mind all night is turned toward him, the way you turn toward a candle in a dark room, half aware, watching to be sure it is still lit. But first, let me tell you about the cold itself, because the cold is the thing this whole night turns upon, and to understand the night, you must understand the cold. There is a great deal of misunderstanding among people who have never lived through a real winter about what the cold actually does. They imagine it as discomfort, as shivering, as a thing you grit your teeth against and endure. And in its mild forms, that is what it is. But true cold, the deep cold of a clear, windless night in the high country, is not discomfort. It is an adversary with a strategy, and its strategy is patience. The cold does not attack. It waits. It seeps. It finds the gaps, the place where your cloak does not quite meet your collar, the seam in your boot, the bare skin of your wrists between glove and sleeve. and it works at those gaps, slowly, hour after hour, drawing the warmth out of you a little at a time. The most dangerous cold is the cold you stop feeling. When your fingers ache, you are still safe. When your fingers stop aching and go quiet and far away, that is when you must move, must stamp, must beat your hands against your sides, because the quiet is the cold winning. And the cold that has won does not give the warmth back. You have seen, once, what happens to the man who forgets. His name was Osric, and it was your first winter. He was found at dawn at his post on the east wall, sitting with his back against the stone, his eyes open, a faint smile on his face frozen through. He had stopped fighting. He had felt the false warmth the deep cold offers a tired man, the drowsy comfort, the whisper to just sit down and rest a moment. And he had welcomed it, and sat down, and never risen. The smile was the worst part. They carried him down the stairs that morning, and Aldous made every young man in the garrison look at his face, and he said, "That is the cold. That is what it offers you. A warm sleep and a quiet smile. Do not take it." You did not take it. You have not taken it. 2 winters running. But on a night like tonight, the coldest night of the year, you understand exactly how a tired man could. Let me tell you how a castle keeps the cold out, or tries to. The keep, the great square tower at the heart of the castle, is the warmest place, and even it is not warm. Its walls are 10 feet of solid stone, which holds what little heat the fires produce. But stone is slow to warm and slow to cool. And in the deep of winter, the stone is simply cold, all the way through. A great cold mass that the fires fight against and never quite defeat. The Lord's Hall on the upper floor has the largest hearth, a fireplace a man could stand inside, and a fire is kept burning there day and night through the winter. The Lord and his family and his chief men sleep in the chambers off the hall, where some of that warmth reaches. They are the lucky ones. The garrison sleeps lower and colder. Your quarters are a long stone room above the gatehouse, with a single brazier and a great deal of straw. You sleep close, closer than men who are not cold would choose to sleep, because shared warmth is the only warmth there is. 8 or 10 men in a heap of straw and blankets and each other, like a litter of pups, because a man alone in that room on a night like this would not see morning, and a heap of men together will. There is no shame in it. The cold has burned the shame out. You have slept with your back against Watt's enormous side and Gilbert's bony shoulder against yours, and counted yourself fortunate for both. The straw matters more than you would think. Fresh straw, deep and dry, is a kind of treasure in winter. It traps the warmth of your body. It lifts you off the killing cold of the stone floor. Part of Watt's work, part of every man's work, is keeping the straw dry and deep and changed before it rots. Because in winter, the straw is the difference between rest and death, and everyone knows it. The fires are the heart of it all. In a winter garrison, fire is not comfort. Fire is survival, and it is treated with the seriousness that survival deserves. There is a strict economy of fuel, wood and peat and charcoal, gathered and dried through autumn, hoarded and counted and rationed through winter. A castle that runs out of fuel in February is a castle of dead men. And everyone knows the stores, watches them dwindle, calculates silently whether they will last to the thaw. Wat is the keeper of the fires, and he takes it as the sacred trust it is. He is, in the deep of winter, perhaps the single most important man in the castle, and the Lord himself knows it and treats him accordingly. On the wall, where you stand your watch, there are braziers too. Iron baskets of glowing charcoal set at intervals along the rampart, where a freezing guard can come and hold his hands a moment and steal a little warmth before returning to his post. You will visit the nearest brazier perhaps a dozen times before dawn. You will stand over it with your hands spread above the coals, feeling the warmth climb into your fingers, and it will be one of the great pleasures of your life, every single time, because the cold has stripped pleasure down to its essentials, and there is no purer essential than warmth when you are freezing. And there is the food. Winter food in a border garrison is not fine, but it is calculated, by long experience, to keep a man alive in the cold. The morning meal is pottage, a thick porridge of oats and barley, cooked slow over the fire, sometimes with a little salt pork or dried beans stirred through. It is hot and it is heavy, and it sits in your belly like a banked fire of its own, burning slow through the cold hours. Edmund makes the pottage better than it has any right to be. He keeps a store of dried herbs and a little hoard of things traded from the village, a twist of pepper, a handful of dried apples, a wedge of hard cheese, and he doles them out into the common pot with the careful judgment of a man who knows that a good meal in deep winter is worth more to morale than a victory in the field. There is bread, dense and dark and filling. There is ale, which is safer to drink than the water, and which warms a man from the inside, though Aldous watches the young ones carefully, because a man who drinks too much against the cold feels warm, and is in fact freezing faster, the drink tricking his body into opening itself to the cold. There is, on the best days, a stew, salt fish soaked and simmered, or a rabbit snared in the white woods. These days are rare in winter, and they are remembered. You have learned that hunger and cold are allies. The body burns food to make heat, and a body with nothing to burn surrenders to the cold far faster than a body that is fed. It is why the garrison, which would tolerate a great many failings in a man, would never tolerate a thief of food. To steal food in a winter garrison is to steal warmth, is to steal life, and it is the one crime for which there is no forgiveness. So that is the castle, and the cold, and the men, and the fragile warmth they build against the dark. Now let me tell you about the night itself. This night, the coldest of the year, and what happens on it. The watches are divided into thirds, from dusk to dawn. The first watch, from nightfall to the hour before midnight, is the easy one. A man is fresh, the cold has not yet had time to do its work, and there is still some life and movement in the castle below. The middle watch, from before midnight to the small hours, is the killing watch, the deepest cold, the lowest hour of the body, the time when the false warmth comes whispering. The last watch, from the small hours to dawn, is the watch of endurance, when a man is hollowed out with cold and tiredness and simply holds on, counting the slow greying of the eastern sky. You have the middle watch tonight, the killing watch. The garrison gives it to its steadier men because it is the watch where men are lost, and you, at 19, with 2 winters behind you, are counted now among the steady. It is a kind of honour, the middle watch, though it does not feel like one at the hour past midnight, with the cold reaching into your bones. You walk your length of the wall, from the north tower to the corner and back, perhaps 80 paces each way, and you do not stop walking, because to stop is to let the cold settle. You walk, and you watch the white country beyond the wall, and you listen. There is little to see. The snow makes the night strangely bright, a faint blue luminance under the cloud, and the hills lie still and pale and empty. There is little to hear. The deep cold silences the world. No birds, no wind tonight. No sound but the creak of your own boots on the frosted stone, and the far-off cracking of trees in the woods as the sap freezes and splits the wood from within. It is, in its terrible way, beautiful. You have learned to see that too. The white hills under the blue dark. The stars on a clear, cold night, more numerous and brilliant than at any other time of year, as though the cold has scoured the sky clean. The smoke of the village rising straight and white in the still air, far below, where your mother sleeps beside a fire that she keeps, you know, a little larger than she needs, because there will always be a place by that fire for you. You think about the fire on the cold nights. You think about the place by it. Around the hour of 2, in the dead heart of the killing watch, you go to the brazier. It is set in the angle of the north tower, an iron basket of coals that Watt tends and refills, glowing a deep, sullen red in the dark. You stand over it and spread your hands above the coals and feel the warmth climb your fingers, and you let yourself have 1 full minute of it. No more, because more than a minute and the warmth becomes a temptation, becomes the thing Aldous warned you of, the comfort that does not want to let you go. 1 minute. You count it. Then back to the wall. But on this night, at the brazier, you are not alone. Aldous is there. He is making his rounds. The captain of the watch walks the whole circuit through the night, checking each man. Because the captain's task above all others is to be sure that every man on the wall is still moving, still warm enough, still alive. He stands across the brazier from you, his scarred face lit red from below, his calm eyes finding yours. "How are your hands?" he asks. It is the question that matters, not "how are you?" but "how are your hands?" Because the hands go first, and a man who cannot feel his hands is a man in danger. "I can feel them," you say. "They ache." "Good," he says. "Aching is good. Aching is alive. Keep them moving." He spreads his own hands over the coals beside yours. Old hands, scarred and knotted. Hands that have held weapons in 3 lords' wars. "Cold one tonight," he says, which from Aldous is practically a speech. You stand together a moment in the red glow. "Aldous," you say. "How many winters have you done? On a wall, in the cold, like this?" He is quiet for a moment, counting, or perhaps deciding whether to answer. 34, he says at last. 34 winters. You try to imagine it and cannot. 34 times the cold has come, and 34 times this man has stood against it and walked down the stairs at dawn. You are 19. You have done too. The arithmetic of it sits strangely in your chest. The long, patient endurance of a whole life spent fighting an enemy that can never be defeated, only outlasted, one night at a time. Does it get easier? You ask. Aldous considers this with the seriousness he gives all real questions. No, he says. The cold is the cold. It does not get easier. He pauses. But you get better at being cold. That is a different thing, and it is enough. He straightens, pulling his hands back from the coals. Your minute is up. Back to the wall. Keep moving. And he is gone. Into the dark. To the next man. To Tom on the east wall. To the whole long circuit of freezing men he holds together through the night by the sheer force of his calm. I told you we would come back to Tom. Tom is 16, and it is his first true winter, and tonight is the coldest night of the year, and you have been thinking about him all night, the way you think about a candle in a dark room. It is not only that he is young and new. It is that 3 days ago a traveller came up the road from the south, a rare thing in deep winter, a tinker driven to travel by some need you never learned. And he carried among his small news a message for Tom. Tom's father had died. A fever in the cold, in the village down the valley. The man who had sent Tom to the castle, who had too many sons and not enough land, who had pressed the Lord's coin into the boy's hand and told him to make something of himself. That man was dead, and Tom was now, at 16, the eldest man of a family he could not reach, could not help, could not even go to, because a guard in winter service cannot simply leave, and the snow had closed the high road in any case. You watched him receive the news. You were there in the gatehouse when the tinker spoke. You saw Tom's face do the thing that a young face does when it is trying to become an older face all at once, in a single moment. The thing where the boy in it goes somewhere far away and something harder and more tired comes forward to take his place. He did not weep. He thanked the tinker, quietly, and he went back to his duties, and he has done his duties without fault every day since. But you know. You have seen him on the wall in the evenings, looking down the valley toward the village he cannot reach, toward a house where his mother and his younger brothers and sisters are now without their father and waiting for a son who cannot come. You have seen him standing very still in the cold, looking at the far smoke of home. You have not spoken to him about it directly. You do not know how. You are 19, and you have no words for a grief like that, and you suspect there are no words, that words are not the thing that is needed. But you have done what you can do, which is the small thing, the only thing. You have made sure, each night, to pass by his post on your rounds. You have made sure he sees you. You have made sure, without making anything of it, that he knows he is not alone on the wall in the dark. When his watch runs late, you have left a portion of Edmund's pottage banked by the fire with a stone over it, to keep the warmth in, the way the older men once did for you. You have not said why. He has not asked. But he eats it, and he nods to you the next day, and something passes between you that does not need to be spoken. This is what the garrison is in the end. Not the walls, not the weapons, not the Lord's war. It is this. Men keeping each other alive through the cold, in small ways, without speeches, because there is no one else to do it, and because someone, once, did it for them. You think about your mother's fire and the place beside it, and you think that perhaps this is the same thing, only colder. That a banked portion of pottage left for a grieving boy is its own kind of fire, its own kept place, its own way of saying, there is warmth here for you, even here, even now. You are not alone in the cold. If this story has found you tonight, if you are still here, drifting now towards sleep, I'm glad of it. If these quiet journeys are the company you want for your nights, then please subscribe and leave a comment telling me where in the world you are listening from. All of us, scattered across the cold world, gathered around the same small fire. Now, back to the wall and the long turn toward dawn. It is the hour of 3. This is the lowest hour. Every man who has stood a winter watch knows the hour of 3. The hour when the body is at its weakest, when the cold has had the longest to work, when dawn is still impossibly far away, and the warmth of the previous day is impossibly long gone. The hour of 3 is when men are lost. Aldous walks the circuit more often in this hour, you have noticed, checking and rechecking, because he knows it too. You walk your length of wall, north tower to corner, corner to north tower. 80 paces. 80 paces. Your feet are far away now. You can feel them only as a kind of dull pressure. And you know you must watch this, must stamp and move, because feet that go silent are feet in danger. You stamp. You beat your hands against your sides. You keep your mind moving the way Aldous taught you, because a moving mind is a warm mind, and a warm mind keeps a man alive. You think about the spring. It is a thing you do in the hour of 3. You make yourself think forward, past the cold, to the thaw that will surely come. You think about the snow melting off the hills, the first green showing through, the river loud with meltwater, the lambs in the high pastures. You think about the cold breaking, as it always eventually breaks. The cold is winning tonight, but the cold does not win the war. The thaw always comes. It is the one certainty you hold on to, in the killing watch, in the hour of 3. Hold on long enough, and the warmth returns. It always returns. And then, far out on the white hills to the north, you see a light. A small one. A point of orange in the blue dark. Perhaps a mile off, perhaps more. Distance is hard to judge across snow at night. A fire. You go still. You watch it. This is what the watch is for. A fire on the northern hills, in the deep of a winter night, on the Scottish side of a contested border, in a war that has emptied this castle of its men. A fire there could be many things. Shepherds, perhaps, though no shepherd would be out in this cold. Travellers, though the high roads are closed. Or it could be the thing every border garrison has learned to fear. Bruce's men move in winter, when the great armies sleep, taking castles by night and stealth rather than by siege. More than one border castle has fallen to a handful of determined men who came in the dark across the snow. A single fire on the northern hills could be the first small sign of exactly that. You watch it for a long time. You do not raise the alarm, not yet. A single distant fire is not an attack, and Aldous has taught you the cost of crying danger at shadows. You watch, and you mark its position against the dark shape of a far hill, and you wait to see if it moves, if it grows, if others appear beside it. It does none of these things. It simply burns, small and steady and far away, a single point of warmth in all that frozen dark. And you find yourself thinking, strangely in the middle of your watchfulness, that whoever sits beside that fire tonight is as cold as you are. That somewhere out there in the white, some other man, friend or enemy, is holding his hands over some other flame, fighting the same cold, counting the same hours, waiting for the same dawn. The cold does not care which side of the border a man stands on. The cold is the one enemy you share with your enemies. And then, slowly, the fire goes out. Not suddenly, not scattered, as a fire is scattered when men break camp in a hurry. It simply diminishes and dwindles and is gone. The way a fire goes when it is allowed to die, when whoever tended it has let it burn down and moved on, or slept, or surrendered it to the cold. You watch the place where it was for a long time. Nothing follows. The hills are dark and pale and empty again, as though the light had never been. You will report it to Aldous when he next comes round. A fire, North Hills, the hour of 3, burned out, no movement. He will nod and mark it, and add it to the long list of things the watch sees and never explains. Probably travellers, probably shepherds, probably nothing. But you will wonder, after, who sat beside that fire, and whether they were warm enough, and whether they saw your torches on the wall the way you saw their flame, and whether they wondered about you in turn. 2 cold lights in a frozen dark, each watching the other, neither ever knowing the truth of the other. The night keeps its secrets. That is one of the things the night does. The hour of 3 becomes the hour of 4. The cold is at its deepest now, but something has changed. A thing you can feel before you can see it. A thing 2 winters on the wall have taught your body to sense. The night has turned. The long fall toward the dark's deepest point is over, and the slow climb toward dawn has begun. It is still bitterly cold. It is still dark, but the night is old now and dying, and you can feel it dying, and that feeling is the sweetest thing a winter watch holds. You think about Tom, 2 towers east, in his first hour of 4, in his first true cold, carrying his new grief through the killing watch. You hope Aldous has been by him often. You hope the banked pottage you left was warm enough. You hope, and it is a strange, fierce hope there in the cold, that he is thinking about the spring, the way you taught yourself to think about the spring, that he is holding on, that he knows, even in the dark, even in the grief, that the thaw will come, and the warmth will return, and he is not, whatever it feels like, alone on the wall. You realize, standing there in the hour of 4, that you have become one of the older men. Not old, 19 is not old, but older, You have become the one who watches the younger one, the one who leaves the banked pottage, the one who passes by on his rounds to be sure the candle is still lit. 2 winters ago you were Tom, frightened and new and grateful for the older men who kept you alive without making anything of it. Now you are the older man. The cold has made you one, faster than years would have. This is how it happens, you think. This is how a boy becomes the man who keeps the others warm. Not all at once. One cold night at a time. The eastern sky begins to grey. It is the faintest thing at first. Not light exactly, but a thinning of the dark at the edge of the world. A place where the black becomes a deep, deep grey, where the stars begin, one by one, to fade. You have watched for this all night. Every man on the wall has watched for this all night. The greying of the east is the promise kept, the proof that the night does end, that the cold does not last forever, that you have survived another turn of the killing watch and will walk down the stairs and eat your breakfast after all. The greying spreads. The grey becomes, very slowly, a colourless pale, and then, at the very rim of the world, the faintest wash of cold rose. The snow on the hills catches it first, turning from blue to a soft grey pink, and the shapes of the land emerge from the dark. The hills, the woods, the white road, the far village with its thread of smoke rising straight and pale in the still dawn air. The cold is, if anything, deeper now than at any point in the night. The hour before dawn is the coldest hour of all, a last cruelty before the light. But you do not mind it now. The light is coming. You can bear any cold now that the light is coming. You hear boots on the stair behind you. Your relief is coming. It is Wat, enormous and careful, climbing the tower stair with the deliberateness of a very large man on icy stone. He comes onto the rampart wrapped in every garment he owns, his breath vast clouds in the dawn cold, and he nods to you, and he takes your place at the north tower without a word, because there are no words needed. The watch passes from hand to hand the way it has passed for 1,000 years. One cold man relieving another. The wall never empty. The watch never broken. Quiet night? Wat asks. His voice is a low rumble. A fire on the North Hills in the hour of 3, you say. Burned out. No movement. I marked it for Aldous. Wat nods, filing it away. Cold one, he says. The coldest, you say. Of the year, I think. Aye, says Wat. But it broke. They always break. He looks out at the greying hills, the coming light. Go down, get warm. You earned it. You descend the tower stair, your faraway feet finding each icy step with care. And you come down into the courtyard where the castle is beginning, slowly, to wake. Smoke is rising from the kitchen now, fatter and greyer than the thin village smoke, and you can smell it. Wood smoke, and beneath it, the first warm scent of Edmund's morning pottage, oats and barley and something savoury, the smell of warmth and food and survival, the smell of having made it through. You cross the courtyard. The cobbles are white with frost and ring under your boots. You pass the well, where the bucket rope is frozen stiff, and the chapel, dark and silent, and the door of the guardroom where the night's off-watch men are sleeping their heap of shared warmth. And you come at last to the kitchen, where a fire is burning, a real fire, an open fire, not a banked brazier but living flame, and you stand before it, and you spread your ruined hands toward it, and the warmth comes into them. It is almost too much. The warmth after the long cold is almost a pain, a fierce, tingling ache as the blood returns to your fingers, as the deep cold is slowly driven out. But it is the best pain in the world. You stand in it and let it work, and your hands unclench, and feeling returns to your faraway feet, and the long tension of the night, the constant low effort of simply staying warm enough to live, slowly releases its grip on you. Edmund is there, stirring the great pot, and he looks at you, and he reads the night in your face the way Edmund reads everything, and without a word, he fills a bowl and presses it into your frozen hands. Hot pottage, thick and savoury, steam rising off it into the cold kitchen air. You wrap your hands around the bowl, and the heat of it soaks into your palms, and you eat, slowly, standing by the fire, and it is, in that moment, the finest meal you have ever eaten in your life. It is always the finest meal you have ever eaten, on the morning after the coldest night. The cold makes it so. Tom comes in not long after. He comes down from the east wall, relieved at last, and he crosses the courtyard and comes into the kitchen, and he is grey with cold and hollow with tiredness, and his eyes have that distant look that a hard night leaves. But he is alive. He has done his first true winter watch on the coldest night of the year, carrying his grief. And he has come down the stairs at dawn, the way Aldous always said a man could if he stayed calm and kept moving, and did not take the cold's false offer of warm sleep. You make room for him at the fire. Edmund fills another bowl. Tom takes it and wraps his hands around it, and stands beside you in the warmth, and for a while neither of you says anything. There is nothing that needs saying. You stood the same night. You bore the same cold. You came down the same stairs. That is a kind of conversation in itself, the deepest kind, the kind that needs no words. After a while, looking into the fire, Tom says quietly, "Does it always last that long?" The night. And you find that you have an answer, Aldous's answer, the true one, passed down to you, and now passing through you to the next cold boy in the long chain of men who have kept each other alive on this wall. It feels long, you say. The middle of it feels like it will never end. But it always ends. The light always comes. You just have to keep moving until it does. You pause. And you're not alone out there, even when it feels like it. Someone's always keeping an eye on the candle. Tom looks at you. Something passes across his tired young face. Not quite a smile, but the place where a smile will be, when he has rested, when the grief has dulled, when the spring has come. He nods. He looks back into the fire. He eats his pottage, and you stand beside him in the warmth of the kitchen, on the morning after the coldest night of the year. Two men who survived it. And you think about your mother in the village below. Beside the fire she keeps a little larger than she needs. There will always be a place by our fire. You understand it now, more than you did. It is not only her fire she meant. It is this, the kept warmth, the made place, the banked portion left for a grieving boy, the room made at the kitchen fire for a frozen man, the candle someone always keeps an eye on. The whole long human work of making warmth for one another against a cold that never stops coming. Your mother's fire in the valley, Edmund's fire in the kitchen, the fire you keep now for Tom. All of them the same fire in the end. All of them a place kept against the dark, for someone coming in from the cold. Outside the sun is rising over the white hills.
The day will be cold. Every day this season is cold. But the night is over, and you survived it, and the light has come, as the light always comes. And somewhere ahead, past all the cold nights still to come, the thaw is waiting. The snow will melt off the hills, the river will run loud with meltwater, the lambs will come to the high pastures, the cold will break, as it always breaks. But that is still far off. For now there is only this, the fire, the warm bowl in your hands, the boy beside you who made it through, the long cold day ahead,